What is up, party people? Welcome back to my channel. I'm Jamila. This is JemilaBeReadin, because I do be reading, and we're here for another monthly wrap up, this time for June. I feel like all I've been doing is filming wrap ups. Where is the time going? It's a good question. But anyway, here are all the books that I read in June. July is certainly going to be an interesting month. It's actually my birthday today as I'm filming this, but the rest of the month ain't looking too cute. But let's just get into it. Starting off with Miss Marvel volumes 3 and 4. I both gave these 4 stars. Really enjoying it. I'm still vibing with this series. I'm going to continue reading it. I'm going to continue watching the show. I don't really have much to say at this point since it is in the middle of the series, but it's a good time. Oh my god. If I'm sweating and you see sweat on my face, no, you didn't. It's very hot right now, and I had to turn off my fan to film this, so mind your business. Anyways, I read Delilah Green Doesn't Care by Ashley Herring Blake. This is a sapphic romance. We are following Delilah, who is a photographer. She has left her small town like years ago. She's living in New York City, but her stepsister has hired her to be the wedding photographer for her wedding, so she is having to come back to this town that she essentially fled in a family, her step family that she like doesn't really see eye to eye with, and it's like bringing up all these old feelings. But then she meets her name is Claire. She's a bookshop owner and a single mother. She's also Delilah's stepsister's best friend, so Delilah knew her growing up, but they're knowing each other kind of for the first time again as adults. And it's a romance between the two of them, and it was so cute. I really enjoyed this. I really liked their individual like journeys that they went on in this book, and then I really loved their relationship. It was like kind of intense but also very tender, and I loved this book. It's a new fave, a new romance fave. I gave this one 5 stars. Okay, to be quite honest, like June was like a banging month for me. I didn't realize it until I was like, going through and looking back at everything that I read, but I had a lot of new favorite reads in this month. Another one being You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty by Akwaeke Emezi. This is their romance debut. And I just, what can I say? I'm an Akwaeke Emezi stan at this point. This is my 3rd book from them. I still need to read Freshwater and their poetry collection, but, and Pet and Bitter. Okay, I actually have quite the backlist to catch up with, but this is, like I said, their romance debut, and I will say that this is, while I would consider it a romance, it lends towards literary fiction a little bit more. So if you're someone who doesn't read a lot of like traditional genre romance, and kind of want to dip your toes into it, I think this is a great place to start. It gives similar vibes, I feel like, to 7 Days in June by Tia Williams. I think they're not like the same at all plot wise, but just like similar vibes to that book. But this is about our main character Faye, who is still kind of dealing with the grief of the loss of her husband 5 years ago, but she's like kind of getting back into the dating scene. She starts dating this man, and things are going well, and then he invites her to his home island, especially because she's an artist and she is like having an opportunity at an art museum in his home island. And then she meets someone else. So I'm gonna keep it vague. This book was so messy. It was so messy. I was screaming, crying, and throwing up the entire time. I was like, Faye, girl, what the hell are you doing? But I was here for it at the same time. Like, it took me on a roller coaster, and I think it really does a beautiful job of displaying grief and like finding love after loss. And we have 2 bicons, which is also great. It has Akwaeke Emezi's, beautiful writing style as always, and it was just amazing. And also this cover is amazing. 5 out of 5. Then I read an arc from NetGalley. This is called January 15th by Rachel Swirsky. This is a short speculative fiction novella that is kind of looking at the idea of universal basic income. So we're following 4 different women who lead very different lives, and we're following them the day before and the day of when their universal basic income gets distributed on January 15th. And we're just kind of looking at their lives and kind of like their opinions on universal basic income. And I thought this was something that would have been right up my alley, honestly. Like, speculative fiction that like discusses societal like themes is usually it for me. But I think the execution of this was just like such a miss for me personally. I wrote like a pretty extensive review on Goodreads, which I usually don't write my reviews on Goodreads. I only do it if I'm reading an arc, like I said I did. But I just feel like there was such a lack of nuance in this conversation, and everything felt so on the nose in every single, like, with every single character and every single, like, thought about universal basic income. Yeah, I'll have a link to my Goodreads description because I said it a lot more, like, eloquently there. But another thing that kind of rubbed me the wrong way a little bit with this is that one of the main characters is a Black woman. She's also a journalist. And I just don't know that her character was portrayed in a respectful way. I don't think it was like intentionally bad. The author is white, or at least not a Black person. And it just felt like this one character was being used to represent an idea of universal basic income that would be held by an entire group of people, when obviously not everyone, just because they're Black, is going to have the same idea on this subject. I don't know, it just felt like very weird, and perhaps not the author's place to do so. But that could just be me. Maybe I'm reading a little bit too much into it, but it just rubbed me the wrong way. And just generally, I felt like all 4 women that we followed, like, none of their stories felt complete is not the right word, but like, we don't really get a sense of who these people are and like why that they would have like an idea of like their thoughts on universal basic income. And I don't know, it just felt this felt like a first draft. It just did not feel like a completed work. Anyways, I'm kind of rambling. Like I said, I'll link my Goodreads review if you want to read it. But yeah, I gave this one 2 stars. Then I was in the mood for another romance, so I read Treasure by Rebecca Weatherspoon. This is another sapphic romance novella. It's following Alexis and Trisha. Alexis is at a strip club for her sister's bachelorette party and meets one of the strippers there, Trisha, and they kind of have like, you know, they're like looking at each other, you know, they kind of have a moment, okay? And then they part ways, obviously, and then it turns out that Trisha and Alexis have a class together at college, so they get to know each other, they become friends, and then we watch their romance develop. It's like a pretty simple plot, not much is going on. I thought it was cute. I really liked that they were just like both young and had never really been in a relationship before, so they were like discovering things with each other, and I thought that was really sweet. And you know, as always, Rebecca Weatherspoon knows how to write a spicy scene, but I just thought it was a little bit too short, and yeah, it just didn't like quite like come together for me. But I still gave this one like a 3.5 stars. There is I'd say a lot of content warnings around suicide and suicidal thoughts, so just keep that in mind. And as always, I will have booktriggerwarnings.com listed in the description so that you can go look up the content warnings for any of the books that I talk about. And Storygraph is also a great resource for content warnings as well. Then I read what has to have been the wildest book I read this year so far, and that's Patricia Wants to Cuddle. This is another one that I read as an arc, but this recently came out, so I had to go pick up a final copy. First of all, this cover and the title is what really drew me in. I was like kind of randomly scrolling on NetGalley, like looking like what was coming up. And I saw this and I was like, wait a second. And then I read the description and I was like, wait a second. So this is following 4 women. We are in a Bachelor-esque show, and they are the final 4 women. We're getting down to the last, few weeks of filming for the show, and they are sent to a very small, very remote and mysterious island in the Pacific Northwest in Washington, kind of like on the border of Washington and Canada. And so, they're there to film. And we're following these 4 women, plus we have the point of view of one of the, what is it called? The producers, like one of the main producers, and then somebody else. And then we also get interspersed these, like a chat room that's dedicated to fans of this TV show. We're getting like letters between these 2 women. We're also getting like blog posts from this girl who's like looking for her missing sister. It's like very interesting, okay? But mainly we're following these 4 women, and as they're filming like in this remote town, things start to happen. People go missing. People perhaps die. Perhaps Bigfoot is there also, let's just say. Yeah. The back of this book, actually, the person who's a co-creator of The Matrix and Sense8, didn't know that. Wow. Lily Wachowski says, well, I guess Bigfoot lesbian rom-com mystery horror is my favorite new genre. So much fun. And I think that's like a super accurate description of this book. I loved this. I loved this so much. I do think that the ending was just a little bit rushed, which is why it's not a full 5 stars. But it's like a 5-star in my heart. But I'm giving it like a 4.5. Then, I've been working on this video for a while, but I'm doing a reading vlog where I'm rereading the Hunger Games trilogy. It's a bit slow going, I have to admit. I was gonna say like maybe it'll be out before this. It's not. As of right now, I still have Mockingjay to read. So when will it be out? At some point, hopefully this month. But anyways, I reread the Hunger Games in June, and I loved it. It had been like a decade since I read this book, and I just completely forgot how good this is and how much it holds up and how like relevant it is to right now. Also, like Suzanne Collins did such an amazing job of crafting this world that like seems so like out of left field and impossible, but really like the more that you read, the more that you realize that like a lot of the tactics that's used by the Capitol and President Snow is like just how dictators have been throughout time and like fascists have been throughout time. I think so many of the dystopian books that came in the aftermath of the Hunger Games popularity just like did not understand what the point of a dystopian book was supposed to be. And it felt a little cash grabby. But anyways, that's not the point. The point is I really love this. Katniss is a much more nuanced character than I remembered. And 5 out of 5. I have since read Catching Fire, but you'll have to wait until that video or my July wrap-up to hear my thoughts on that, but loved this as well. Then I read Now Streaming by Isla Chandler. This is a Kindle Unlimited romance. I actually heard about it because Mari Ness from My Name is Mari Ness was talking about it on TikTok, and I was like, this sounds interesting, so I picked it up. And this is a romance, like I said, between 2 gaming streamers. My memory card filled up in the middle of filming. I think I was talking about Now Streaming, which is a romance between 2 streamers. We have Minerva and Hayden. Okay, Minerva and Hayden both really value their privacy, so that they're like, they don't really like show themselves while streaming. Minerva puts on like a wig and like a bunch of makeup and like has this whole like persona that she takes on when she's doing streaming. And then Hayden is just a voice. He doesn't show his face at all. It's giving corpse husband vibes, low-key. Anyways, they are like kind of like rivals, but like not really. They're like gaming friends, whatever. They've never met each other in person until they do one day. And they also have to compete at a convention, like a gaming convention. They both need the prize money for various reasons. I will say that there is a content warning for like revenge pictures. Minerva's ex gets mad at her and ends up releasing pictures of her, and that's kind of the catalyst for the story. She like loses all of her sponsors, so she's like relying on this competition to like get her reputation back, even though it's not her fault. But the gaming community is very misogynistic, and so everyone is like saying that she slept her way to popularity, blah blah blah, and like she just lost a lot of her sponsors, all that stuff. Anyway, so they meet, they have a romance. It's good. I really enjoyed it. 4 stars, I'd say. And yeah, I don't really have a lot to say. I enjoyed it. If you're looking for a good romance, I think their relationship was like pretty well developed, even though I feel like under normal circumstances, I would have said that this was a bit insta-lovey, but since they've known each other for a while, like even though they didn't know like in person, I thought it was fine. They like kind of always had a connection. And yeah, I liked that, like, I was gonna say I liked that miscommunication wasn't like the third act like conflict. It like kind of is, but like it's really like an external conflict rather than like them fighting with each other or whatever. But anyways, I liked it. Good stuff. The spice was spicing. Okay. Then I read Written in the Stars by Alexandria Bellafleur. And this is another sapphic romance. This is a romance between Darcy and Elle. Darcy is an actuary, and Elle is an astrologer, who is one of the astrologers behind this really popular astrology Instagram page. And she and her working partner are teaming up with a dating app to like help with the dating app. I don't know, whatever. And that's how Elle meets Darcy, because the dude who runs the dating app, that's his sister. And also, if you can tell by the names, this is a Pride and Prejudice retelling. I don't really know like how, to be quite honest. Like I didn't really get Pride and Prejudice vibes. To be honest, I haven't read Pride and Prejudice, but I have seen many an adaptation. So I didn't really get Pride and Prejudice vibes from this, but I thought this was painfully fine. It was kind of boring. It had a very slow start. I wasn't really feeling Elle as a character. I found her to be kind of irritating, to be quite honest. But once there is like a fake dating element in this too. So once the fake dating happens, I think it's cute. I like it a little bit more. But the conflict, my God, the conflict was so contrived. It didn't make any sense. Like, wow, I was so angry. I have like a little book club with me and 3 of my friends, and this was the book that we read in June, and like all we were talking about was how how stupid the like conflict was at the end of this book. But whatever, this was fine. I'd give this like a 2.75. I do own the second one in this series that's following Darcy's brother, the owner of the dating app. Sitting on my shelves. I might read it simply because I own it already. So, but yeah, this was a flop for me personally. Then I read probably my favorite book of the month, and a book that is now duking it out with Love Songs of W.E.B. Du Bois for my favorite book of the year so far. And that is Taurus by Carolina de Roortis. And this is so good. This was the Pros Before Bros book club pick for June. And honestly, like I've noticed that like some of my favorite books of all time have been book club picks from PBB. Anyways, love PBB. Love this book club. Anyway, this is a historical fiction, like literary fiction novel. It's following 5 queer women during the 1970s and the 1980s, which is a time where there was a dictatorship in Uruguay. And so we are following them throughout a decade, mainly a decade, but it does like kind of fast forward a little bit at the end. But we're following these women through time during this dictatorship in Uruguay, and like navigating life, you know, under dictatorship, but then the added fear of like being found out as a queer woman and like not being able to live your life to the fullest, both because of the dictatorship and because they would not be accepted in society as women who love other women. And actually the name Cantores means singer in Spanish, but it was also like kind of a code name for women who love women, or like lesbians. So they called themselves the Cantores. Anyway, this book, this book was so good. I loved these women so much. Like, we really got a true sense of these women, and they all felt so unique and distinct. And it was just so like interesting to watch their lives during this time. And I feel, why do I feel like kind of emotional right now? Oh my gosh. But this book, I really felt this book, especially because like during this time, my parents are from Ethiopia, and during this time there was also a dictatorship, and I had just written my capstone for law school about the human rights violations during this time in Ethiopia. So I just feel like all of this was in my head in the last like 6 months, and then reading this, and I'm just like, wow, this, I just feel like it really hit close to home. And I, you know, even though like a lot of this is very grim and sad, I just love that these women were able to carve like a space for themselves, to be themselves, to experience joy and all that stuff. So I just really love this book. Massive content warnings for this book. Please check it out. Off the top of my head, essay, torture, confinement, obviously, homophobia, violence, just, yeah, I would look up the content warnings on this book. But it was just so beautifully written, and I loved it so much, and it was just so good. And then finishing off the month on a lighter note, I read Treble by Rilzy Adams. This is another romance novella. It is about a married couple, Hendrix and Nova, who are in a polyamorous relationship. They've been in a poly relationship for a while now, but they usually like date separate people, and like they don't date the same person. But they meet this woman, I'm forgetting her name, but they had both been like kind of like messaging her, and they didn't realize that they were like kind of dating the same person, but then they realize it, and then they all get together. This is a very smutty book, I will say, but I really loved the relationship between these three people. Like, I just thought like it was really wholesome, and they were all very caring of each other, and I really loved seeing like how openly communicative everyone is. Obviously, like, it's super necessary when you're in a poly relationship, but it was just great, and I loved it. And I love Rilzy Adams. This is like my 4th or 5th book from this author, so it was a good time. If you're looking for a quick smutty read that's also kind of wholesome, check this one out. And that is everything that I read this month. It was a great reading month for me. I don't know what July is going to bring me. I am taking the bar exam at the end of the month, and I'm very stressed about it. But hopefully I'll have some good reads to like calm me down, you know, after studying. So I'll check y'all in the next video.